What is up, guys? It is Styx here, and today I'm going to be going over the Summoner auto rifle. This is a newly reprised auto rifle. It's got a bunch new rolls. It comes from Trials of Osiris, and as far as farming it goes, I would highly recommend that you use the persistence card. If you ever see it flawed, you want to reset it. However, if you can get to 7 wins without flawing it, which is basically, it works on a system of for every 2 wins in a row you can get, that is at least 1 permanent win. The only times I've seen it flawed personally have been at 6 wins if you lose twice in a row, and at 0 wins if you lose, it will flaw the card. This also applies to if you get 1 win and then lose and you're at 0 and then lose again. And while those things I'm sure will eventually be fixed, for now, just work around them and use those persistence cards if you aren't confident that you can consistently go flawless. I myself went solo flawless last weekend, so I was able to get myself the Adept rendition of the Summoner. But if you are not confident enough to get the 7 wins on a persistence card during a Summoner weekend, or you just don't want to put the time into it, you can focus it as a normal Summoner with Saint 14, and you will still have access to all of the great rolls, and realistically, stat-wise and mods-wise, there's not going to be a massive difference. As far as the stats go, you're looking at 40 range, 41 stability, 70 handling, 56 reload speed, 62 aim assistance, and 24 airborne effectiveness, with a pretty poor recoil of 57 and a 600 RPM, as well as a 42 magazine size. As far as the overall perks, I'm going to go into the barrel first because it doesn't really matter across PvP or PvE. This is mostly preference based. In my case, I would highly recommend Hammer Forged, especially if you're on PC, you have a bit more control over your aim. And if you're on console, I can highly recommend Small Bore and Corkscrew Rifling as well, or if you're just not as confident with your shot. If the recoil is something that really bothers you, I would recommend Arrowhead Break, as this increases your handling and your recoil and makes it overall feel a bit better to use. However, this entirely depends on one of the perks that you can get in the first column. Now, going to the magazine, this is going to change from PvE to PvP. For PvP, I would highly recommend high caliber rounds, ricochet rounds, or armor piercing rounds. All 3 of these slightly increase the range by 5, and they also have an added effect. High caliber rounds increases flinch on targets, ricochet rounds lets it bounce off walls and increases stability, and armor piercing rounds causes extra shield damage and over penetrates targets. If you are in PvE, I'm going to recommend also armor piercing rounds and extended mag. These are your best options here because armor piercing mods once again does extra shield damage, which is great in those higher end activities, and over penetrates targets. I believe it can also help if it's anti-barrier auto rifle to deal more shield damage. An extended mag has great synergy with a perk in the first column, Overflow, as well as another perk in the first column, Subsistence. Going into the first column, starting with PvP again, I'm going to highly recommend Elemental Capacitor when using Stasis, Arc, or Void. Elemental Capacitor gives different effects based on the energy of your currently equipped subclass. For Strand, it increases airborne effectiveness. For Stasis, it controls recoil, in which case you don't need to use Arrowhead Break, and increases your ADS movement speed, so that while you are ADSing, you can strafe a bit faster. This can confuse people pretty easily. Void increases your stability, which puts this at 61, and Arc increases handling, which puts this at 100 handling. Solar increases your reload speed, which is pretty negligible on this weapon. I would also highly recommend Zen Moment, as Zen Moment is probably the best overall perk in this column if you completely ignore what subclass you're using. If you are using Stasis or Void, I would really recommend Elemental Capacitor because it can just be really nice to feel how nice the weapon moves and handles. Zen Moment really allows you to keep up with your consistency because causing damage with the weapon reduces your recoil and flinch over time as you are dealing damage. This basically means that as the fight is going on, you will be taking less flinch and you will be having less recoil. This will turn the gun into a laser beam and you'll just be able to wipe the floor with people. Dynamic sway reduction is not bad, but I would say that it isn't a massive increase unless you're having a really difficult time controlling the weapon. For PvE, I would recommend Overflow and Subsistence. This is because Overflow allows you to overfill your magazine by picking up special or heavy ammo, which in PvE happens fairly quickly. And when combined with Extended Mag, this allows you to have 100 bullets in your magazine, which on a summoner is pretty potent. Subsistence is like a worse version of Overload in the sense that defeating targets partially reloads the magazine from reserves. So this is better in content that you wouldn't need very strong weapons for. However, it is worse in content that you would want to be able to put more bullets into singular targets, like GMs or higher difficulty dungeons and raids. Another perk that I'm not super sure on the use about for both PvE and PvP is Heal Clip. This I would only recommend putting with Kill Clip in the second column, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Now going into the second column, for PvP, I would highly recommend one of 3 perks. Target Lock, which increases the damage the longer this weapon remains on a target. Basically, when you hit 8 consecutive shots, you will get a damage increase, and Missing deactivates the buff. This was nerfed on SMGs, however on auto rifles it remains the same, and as such it is a very nice perk to have. Another great option, and what I highly recommend, especially if you are on controller, is Tap the Trigger. This helps the gun remain significantly more consistent on your first trigger pull because it increases your stability and accuracy by a fair amount. This only happens for about half a second, but that is enough time to secure yourself the kill with the weapon because of the amount of headshots you could potentially get just for aiming a little bit better than you would normally. Another great option, and what I'm going to recommend overall, is Onslaught. Final blows with this weapon increase its rate of fire by 16% for 1 kill, 28% for 2 kills, and 37% for 3 kills. We can worry about the 3 kills all we'd like, however, the bottom line of this is, getting it even at 16% puts it up from a 600 RPM auto rifle all the way to a 700 RPM auto rifle, which, while not sounding like a massive increase, is more than enough to get the jump on many other weapons, as it significantly reduces your time to kill and can be really surprising the amount of flinch you can deal to an enemy when they are getting hit by a higher rate of fire summoner. This is very good for chaining kills in PvP, and I would highly recommend it. In PvE, I would say you have a lot of good options here. Golden Tricorn, which ability kills and kills with this weapon give you increased damage. Onslaught, once again, as I explained, increases its rate of fire, which also improves its damage against PvE combatants, and it's even easier to hit those 3 stacks. And Incandescent, which defeating a target spreads Scorch to nearby enemies, especially if you are defeating higher health targets, as these will cause a larger radius of Scorch. Now, obviously, Kill Clip is in this column, and I don't really recommend using Kill Clip over a lot of these other perks. Kill Clip is a great perk, it's just overshadowed by a lot of the consistency and damage brought by these other surrounding perks, as well as unique build potential. However, I would recommend a certain setup, which is Heal Clip, Kill Clip. This is because in PvP specifically, and potentially PvE as well, though healing is a bit more abundant in PvE, I would recommend Heal Clip and Kill Clip because every kill that you get, when you heal, you get cured, and then you also get a damage bonus. This can allow you to chain kills very effectively while keeping your life and playing your life. As far as overall setups, I would highly recommend for PvP that you run Hammer Forged, Ricochet Rounds, Elemental Capacitor, or Zen Moment, and Onslaught, or Tap the Trigger. Target Lock is great, and I can definitely see usage for it if you enjoy using it, but for me, I have found way more consistency with Onslaught and Tap the Trigger than I have with Target Lock as of currently. And for PvE, I would recommend, once again, Hammer Forged, Armor Piercing Rounds, or Extended Mag, Overflow, and Golden Tricorn, or Incandescent. These are the perks with the most build potential, as they will allow you to build this around a solar subclass, which can be very potent, or just around the current solar seasonal mods. The best origin trait is by far a wild card, as the submunitions give you a lot of utility in both PvE and PvP. In PvE, when enemies walk over it, it does damage, that's obviously good. And in PvP, in things like Trials, it can be actually extremely useful for denying reses and revives. This is because when you kill someone with it, it'll drop a bunch of them on the ground. When someone goes to res that person, they will very likely walk over one without even realizing it and take the damage. This will reset their revive timer. A lot of the time, they're a little delayed and don't actually explode until like midway through the revive, so this gives you significantly more time to react. Masterwork wise, for PvP, I would recommend range and stability, and for PvE, I would recommend reload speed. Your weapon mod is going to depend on personal playstyle. However, I will say if you are worried about the recoil, use the standard counterbalance instead of the adept counterbalance. That way you don't have to deal with the range debuff. I am personally running the adept version of the weapon, and as such, I'm running adept range. However, if I were not running the adept version of the weapon, I would probably go with a counterbalance. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Get yourself some summoners, get yourself some good stuff going on, and I hope you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Peace out.